Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about dynamic stretching. Dynamic stretching or warming up is just moving through a range of motion using voluntary muscular contractions rather than passively or using the force of gravity. You can use it as a warm up by itself if you have no known muscular imbalances. You can also use it with muscular imbalances if you use some static stretching prior, and that seems to work together fairly well. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And it's a good modality to use rather than static stretching prior to activities that require maximal effort. Typically not done after a workout because most of the reasons why you would do it before a workout are taken care of after a workout, as far as joint stiffness and having elevated the temperature and increased the range of motion by then already. Okay, why does it work? The theorized performance benefits. Dynamic stretching seems to increase the range of motion or have no effect, to no negative effect, without decreasing maximal or intense explosive performance or even muscular endurance performance, whereas static stretching tends to have a fairly acute muting effect on that prior to exercise. The mechanism behind it is not 100% clearly understood. There's not been that many studies done on the mechanism of why dynamic stretching increases the range of motion, other than the simple combination of muscular contractions happening in the same area. There are some hypotheses as to some motor tendon unit activation having to do with the alleviation of some debilitating muscle stiffness, but it doesn't seem to be the primary mechanism, and that needs to be studied further. Okay, as far as new research goes, within the last couple of years, I found a couple of studies that were interesting and relevant regarding dynamic stretching. One having to do with a comparison between foam rolling, static stretching, and dynamic stretching for increasing range of motion, but taking into account uh, range of motion and muscular activation in the torque. So they did a surface EMG to make sure the muscles were completely relaxed when they were measuring ranges of motion, and then intervened with either static stretching, dynamic stretching, or foam rolling, and found that static stretching and dynamic stretching were better than foam rolling for increasing range of motion in the hip, at least, and that a combination of less than 60 seconds of static stretching combined with some dynamic stretching to follow that worked better than prolonged static stretching combined or either alone. However, dynamic stretching on its own without the static stretching also helped improve range of motion. All right, the other study I found by Lopez et al. Here in 2021 looked at as a comparison between dynamic stretching and self-administered self-myofascial release with professional tennis players, and did a comparison between 8-minute dynamic warm-up versus an 8-minute foam rolling warm-up, and found that both were good for preparation for tennis movements, but that the dynamic stretching warm-up was better preparation at least in the testing results for the tests that involved a change of direction and sprints. So both of those being important for tennis players, would be recommended to include those as part of your warm-up for tennis. So in summary, dynamic stretching is it's a better, more efficient modality for pre-workout stretching than static stretching. It doesn't seem to diminish your muscular performance or especially explosive athletic performance after, and still needs to be studied further to find out what the real mechanisms as to why this all works are. Thank you.